Hey everyone, it's Ginger Walker and welcome to this episode of our vlog for Give Back team of Caldwell Banker Elite. And today we have a really cool guest on and I'm so excited for you guys to all meet him. His name is Hamilton Glass and I actually got to know you as Ham Glass on Instagram. Is that like your handle on Instagram?
It is. That's my handle on Instagram.
So should I be calling you Hamilton or should I be calling you Ham Glass? So I just want to get this right from the beginning.
You can, people call me Hamilton and Ham for short. So either Ham or Hamilton, your choice.
All right, cool. I kind of like Ham. I'm going to go with that if that's okay.
That's fine. That's fine.
Well, so, I got to tell you, how I met you, well, we haven't met. This is actually the first time we're actually seeing each other.
Yeah.
But how I got to know your work was my kids actually swim competitively, and we would go down to Richmond in Virginia for swim meets. And when we would go out between prelims and finals, I would see your artwork on the side of some of the buildings and your sticker, the RVA. Can you show your shirt? Show everyone your shirt. So he's wearing a shirt with the letters RVA on it, which is for Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah.
And you've got some really cool, just colors and it always drew me to your work because it's so colorful and inviting and engaging. And so then I found you on Instagram and I started following you. And actually I've chased down your work before because you've done work not only in Richmond, but you've also done work all over the place, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But
yeah.
I would love for people to get to know who you are. So I did a little research and I found out that are you from Philly originally?
Yes, I am. Born and raised.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about were you an artist in Philadelphia or where did Ham Glass come from? Or where did the artist of Hamilton come from?
Yes. So I am originally from Philadelphia, though my mother is from Richmond. So I've never been a stranger to Richmond because my mother, she got married, moved to Philadelphia and had me and my brother. But I was that city kid that sometimes got bused down to Richmond, which is like deep south to me, which is really not, but which is like south to me when I was little. So I've never been a stranger to Richmond, but I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I ended up going to Hampton University, which is out here. When I was a sophomore in high school, my mother moved back to Richmond, but I stayed. I was like, you're not pulling me out of high school right now. So I stayed in Philadelphia until I graduated high school. And then I moved here and I went to Hampton University. And then I graduated from Hampton and did what? I went back up north for about 3 or 4 years. But in 2007, I ended up coming back here.
Were you, I think I read somewhere that you were an architect, or is that what you went to school for?
I went to school for architecture, graduated at Hampton with my B.Arch, practiced for about 8 years. And then around 2009, when the recession came, I lost my position as an architect. And honestly, my wife just was like, why don't you do your art? And she wasn't saying that to say like, you could be an artist. She was saying that like, why are you looking for why are you looking for another job?
Right.
Do art. And I have the traditional artist story where I've known that I could draw and had this like calling to be creative since I was young. And I was that little kid who was like, drawing comic books and things like that. But I've always done it for myself. My mother kind of recognized it really early too. And she used to put me in every art class imaginable. I went to like Philadelphia Art Institute for a little bit. And I don't want to say I hated it, but my mother, she just saw the talent in me and put me in everything. And I to the point where I was like, I can remember being like 12 years old and being in like this art class where we were drawing naked people and stuff, and I just hated that. That wasn't, you know what I mean? That's not what
that wasn't your style.
That wasn't my style, and I hated people telling me how to create art, and so I kind of suppressed it a little bit. And then I went into school at Hampton for architecture, and architecture was something that I honestly went into because it was like the most creative thing I could do without being broke, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no,
I
for sure.
fell for that stereotype of like, being a starving artist and not wanting to be a starving artist. And I went into that, and really early, I recognized there's no way I could do this for the rest of my life. I don't love architecture, but it was where I was at, and the place was the easiest thing to do, and I did it, and I graduated. Um, and architecture got worse for me, in my opinion, when once you get out in the real world, and all your projects aren't fantasy, and they're ruled by money and clients.
Right.
And that's where I really hated it. But
Oh,
I still kind of stuck it through. And then when I lost my position in 2009, I was like, this kind of can't be life. Like, I'm now I'm lost my position is something I really didn't want to do. And so while I was looking for another position, I just went really hard in creating art. It was like going back to that place where I was a kid again, and I could create anything I wanted to create. And so I was out of work for about a year and a half, and in that year and a half, I created more art than I ever had. And
that's
then,
amazing.
yeah, and during that time, I mean, there were no murals in Richmond,
Hmm.
and I just kind of fell into that. And right now, if you go to Richmond, they're all over the place, but
Yeah.
um, they there were none, or very little, in 2009. And I just was kind of, being a kid from Philadelphia, I was like, there's no murals here, like
In
I
Philly, there's a lot because I went to college. I'm from New Jersey originally, and I went to college outside of Philly. And
yeah,
I mean, I know that Philadelphia has a lot of murals. It has a lot of, I mean, it has graffiti too,
yeah,
which your work is nothing like that. Your work is actually, I mean, it's actually stunning. I mean, I love the detail and the color, like I said before, but so coming from Philly, I mean, I know kind of that vibe of where you came from,
yeah,
and to be able to bring it to another city like Richmond is pretty awesome.
absolutely. I honestly feel like I had like a cheat sheet, because I was from this city that, you can't walk down a block without seeing a mural, to a place where there were none. And so um, I don't want to make it sound like it was my plan to bring murals to Richmond, and nor could I take credit for that. But I felt like I had this big cheat sheet, like we could do things like this. And the first time I was able to do something here, I kind of fell in love with the process of doing it. And people were looking at me like, you're going to encourage graffiti here. And I was like, no, this is actually graffiti abatement. I've seen this where I grew up, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And so it was just, I was just in the right place at the right time.
So tell me, what was your first mural in Richmond? What did you draw? What was it of?
Yeah. So my first mural, I had did this art show at this computer shop called ALB Tech, which doesn't exist anymore. But and the guy loved my work so much, he was like, "Hey, can you like make a sign for me?" He didn't even call it a mural. Can you like make this like big sign? I want to do it on the whole side of my building. I was like, "Oh, a mural? Yeah, I can do that." And to be honest, I had never done a mural before, but I was like faking it till I made it. You
Right,
know what I'm
right.
saying? And I didn't even charge him money. We just trade. It was a computer shop, and he did websites, so he made me a website.
Oh, perfect.
So we like bartered, and I did it. And like I said, I fell in love with the process of it. It was just like way different than doing campus work. And it was so much of it. Took me way longer than it should have, but it was my first one, and I fell in love with the process. And he loved it so much that he let me do one in the back. And that one was for me. He was like, anything you want to do. And it was you got to remember the times too. It was during the recession, and I was a little upset. And art is just this thing that lets you kind of like express yourself. And it was a politician holding a gun to his head. So it was like this really frustrating image because I was frustrated at the time, if that makes any sense. And that
Yeah,
mural, as you can imagine, especially in a city that had no murals, was like, what is that? And why
right.
is it there? And it caused a bit of a controversy, got on the news and things like that. And so that was the first time I think that I, for one, even thought about someone um, actually absorbing my art, which
Mhm.
sounds really weird, but you know, you do like this large piece of work, you're thinking, not that no one's going to see it, but no one's really going to stop to think about it.
Right.
And that happened, and that kind of kind of rocked my world in the sense of like people having the accountability of people seeing it and things like that, and understanding how powerful being a public artist is. And so that opportunity, the attention I got from that opportunity landed me some really much bigger opportunities that really kind of set my heart on fire in terms of like saying, oh, I want to be an artist.
That's awesome though. I mean, so, even though it was controversial, it definitely gave you validation that people were paying attention to what you were doing.
Absolutely.
So that first mural, the one that you did on the outside, what was that one of? Was it more the computer related? Was it?
Yeah. It was a boy holding like computer screens with, yeah, it was more like it wasn't a sign. It definitely was more art based on the creative side, but it was more of like a computer shop kind of mural.
Sure. Not quite exactly the free flowing style that you might have
No,
necessarily done, but more
I
like a,
didn't have a style
yeah.
then.
Yeah. So, I did mention that I've chased your art, and I think I've photographed it with one of my colleagues, and we tagged you on Instagram. We found some of your art in Washington, D.C. So tell us, have you gone back to Philly? Have you done any murals in Philly, or where can people find your artwork?
Yeah, most of my work, well, it's all over the place. The majority of it is in Richmond. I have over 200 murals in Richmond.
Wow.
DC, I have about 10, maybe a little bit less than 10. I'd have to sit and think right now and count them out, but I have a little bit more than a handful in DC. Um, I do a lot of work in Northern Virginia too. Like a lot of those tech firms, I've done work inside their things there. But between in the DMV area and Richmond are most there's sometimes I get odd jobs where I go jump on a plane and do things. I've gone as far as San Francisco to do work.
Wow.
But yeah, but most of my work is here. A lot of my stuff is also like community based. So it's not all commissions. I would say probably about half. It's not all commissions. I like to do a lot of work with the community. I really know and value the power of public art and try to use that public art to kind of um, bring bring recognition to a nonprofit or do work with kids, work in schools, things like that. So I turn down a lot of things that go far away. I have a 3 and a 9-year old,
Oh,
so I try to stay kind of close to home. There are some opportunities I can't say no to, but
right.
try
Right.
to stay close to home and do a lot of work that have that like community engagement aspect to them.
So, that's actually something that drew me to you, to be very honest with you. First, your murals drew me in because they're so amazing. And I have noticed that, in watching you on social media too, that you do a lot within schools. I
Yeah,
think you did something with the Boys and Girls Club. I think I might have seen, or
yeah, I
I know,
work a lot with them.
yeah, I know you do a lot of community type engagement. And so for me, that was the added, I need to talk to this guy because he's amazing. And I have a passion, and what we do, what I do for work is we give back to our community too through our work.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that that's just so special that you're able to offer that gift that you have in putting murals up, but also doing it within the community to help the community also. So I want to talk a little bit about that part. Like, what are you, do you do anything as far as involving the kids with the murals? Or I know I've seen pictures where you've had other people painting with you. So
Yeah.
can you tell us, just from the outreach part, tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, first I'll start kind of with the why, and that's just because like when I spoke earlier about not feeling like I could be an artist and going into architecture because of that, and I think that is just kind of a representation thing. Like I've never seen, when I was young, I never saw an artist in front of me say, "Yeah, this is what I do," and I go and do that, and now to be afforded the opportunity or to fall into that opportunity to be able to do that for a living was just special. And I feel like I need to show that, like, so someone else
Yeah.
can go do that. And so that's kind of why. Philadelphia also, and I'm gonna keep praising Philadelphia, but I mean, I just feel like my journey has kind of pushed me this way. And being from Philadelphia and knowing the background of the Philadelphia Mural Arts program there, and how they took graffiti artists to do work that reflected in the neighborhoods that they came from. Like I feel like I have a cheat sheet. That's something that I learned after I left, and has kind of looked back in afterthought, like, oh wow, that's why that was there. I can kind of follow that model,
Right.
and kind of be the same way. And so I do a lot of work. One of the big opportunities I had once the smoke cleared, and I got those opportunities after the first murals, was working with corporations and schools. And so being afforded the opportunity to have a corporation pay for schools, to do public art in schools, was just amazing. So I wanted to have the opportunity to talk to every child or every art student within the school that I got to paint in doing that. And then once I started doing more of that, I started to see how hungry they were for that. And so that hunger just drove me to say, well, how could I do this even without the corporation? Like, how could I do this? Because every time when you do work with corporations, and this isn't a bad thing, this is just how the world works. When you do projects with corporations, you have to do it a certain way. You know what I mean? There are rules. I wanted to be able to make programs where that kind of play by my rules, that I didn't have to go around too much red tape and things like that. And so I started to get into grant making, grant writing, and things like that. And that has been good, even though I'm not a grant writer, and there's so many ways I can improve how I do that. But that's kind of where I am now, where the last 2-3 years I've been dibbling and dabbling in grants, but also partnering with other nonprofits who want projects like I'm doing, and us partnering up and making those projects run the way we want, and involving the kids more.
So do the kids get to help paint some of the projects with you in the schools?
Yes, absolutely. Not only do they get to help paint, I try to, especially when it's a program that goes by my rules, but that I'm writing a grant for, I try to make it so they design them too.
Wow.
So there might be 6 or 7 sessions where we're sitting down and we're going through designs and what this mural needs to say, and the accountability behind what we're putting up and things like that. And then after those sessions, we go and we paint them. 2 years ago, we did a project at MLK Middle School. I'm mentioning this one. I've done tons of them, but I'm mentioning this one because it was the largest one. MLK Middle School, where we did the whole side of the MLK Bridge here in Richmond. And so that was a program where they got to design it, and we got to paint it too. So it represented that school, and the kids designed it all.
That's amazing. So
Yeah.
as far as the style, because I've noticed, I saw you just did one, I think in like was it a therapy room or, um, I,
Mindfulness.
so what do you call your style of art? What is it called?
Yeah, I think my work, I couldn't give you my style, but I think my work is really heavily influenced by architecture, that architecture
Okay.
background that I have. And I'm really intrigued with color theory and things like that. So colors are very important in my work. Um, yeah, once you like see a lot, I've been told by many people, once you see my work once, you like know,
You do. I mean,
no,
it's funny because like I said, one of my colleagues and I, we went searching for one of your pieces of art in DC, and we knew we had it geotagged, and we knew but it was funny. It was the whole front of a building,
yeah.
and when we saw, like, as we drove by it, I was like, because we went by it trying to find it using a GPS, and we found it. We backed up. We got to it, but as soon as we passed it, I knew it was you, because your work is so, it's distinctive, and it's
Yeah.
it's it's very engaging. I mean, without a doubt, I can see some of your work behind you right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
So what is the work behind you? What is that? You want to tell us a little bit about what that's behind you?
Yeah. So the work behind me right now is something that doesn't happen a lot. It's personal work. I don't get to do a lot of personal work. Usually from like March till December, I'm outside on some walls. So I don't really get the time to do this. And lately, I would say within like the last 2 years, I've been kind of making a mission of mine to do more work that belongs to me.
Mhm.
Um, I in talks with my voice, if that makes any sense, because I do so much work that again is community based, and it
Right.
speaks to not me at all. Usually, actually, it speaks to me in the sense that I believe in what that project's about.
Mhm.
Um, but this work right here is really what I like, if that makes any sense, or
Sure.
what I think I like, if that makes any sense. Because this is my studio, and I'm in here just experimenting, to be honest. And I honestly, my double-edged sword is I get to work on all these really cool projects, but I don't get to share my voice often, nor do I get to know what my voice is. You have
Mhm.
to you know what I mean? You have to have
Right.
time to make the mistakes to kind of know what your voice is. So this is like where I find out where that happens. So it's this stuff on the wall, none of it's really complete but it allows me to kind of like be that little kid again, and paint what I want to paint and see where it takes me and things like that.
That's amazing, though. So that's your studio. So that's really cool. So is this kind of where you come up with the concepts of when you're given a piece to your commission to do a piece, where you kind of come up with I don't know, do you call it a storyboard or a concept, or
Yeah.
how does that part of the process work for you?
Yeah, I call it a concept, and I'm, I'm going to keep when it comes to design and stuff. It's funny because I am no longer an architect and no longer work in architecture field, but I operate like one. I
That's
totally do.
interesting.
When it comes to design, it's really just this like, because my client is really community, especially the community stuff is really like, what are we trying to say? What are we trying to do? Who are we trying to, reach with this? I, I make like concept sketches in here in Photoshop and things like that, and kind of, yeah, and kind of just create them to show the client and see what they think. It's if I were to like go to sleep and wake up and it was like 1999, I would go right back into architecture school. People ask me all the time, like, do you like miss not having to go to art school? And like, no, I would do the same thing because architecture school was it was great. Even though I knew I didn't want to be an architect, it definitely kind of like helped my path
Right.
in where I am now.
So what is the largest mural you've done?
So the largest mural I've done was about 20 feet tall and 140 feet wide.
Wow. And what was it of and for?
So, and I've had a couple that were that big. So, but the one that I'm thinking of was one that I did for Girls for a Change, which is a nonprofit here in Richmond.
Yeah.
And that is another really good example of one that that speaks about the mission and not about me.
Mm-hmm.
It the girl I heard. So Girls for a Change is this organization, which I like to say the long and short of it is brings access to brown and black girls.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just in Richmond; they're nationwide.
Right.
But I heard a group which they call like their action team speaking to an organization on Facebook somewhere, and they were talking about being able to see themselves in a good light and things like that. And my ears like perked up, and that was like 2% of their speech, but my ears just were like, oh, I could help you do that. And so I reached out to their CEO, Angela Patton, and said, hey, I would love to start like a girl action team with one of your groups and like design a mural that talks about whatever they want to talk about. And Angela was all about it. And so we did a girl action team at John Marshall High School. And the girls, I think we had about 12 girls who were all about it. I brought in another artist by the name of Austin Miles, just because like I'm not a woman, I'm not a black girl, if that makes any sense. I was like, I can't sit in front of these girls and try to pull out what makes them a black girl if I'm not a black girl.
Right.
But Austin is great. She's also a really good public artist here who worked under me for a while. But we sat with them for about 8 weeks, and then we got Virginia Credit Union to sponsor the project.
Oh, how nice!
And so we on First and Broad, there's this. They designed this long mural, but it speaks to beauty, but it also speaks to the other side of it. And they use the motif of a garden to do it. So there's I think there's like 8 women's portraits with some were sad faces, some with happy faces, and just like a slew of flowers that goes all the way through it.
So your murals tell a story. I mean, they do tell a story. Every one of them that I've seen, I mean, you can see the story in just looking at the mural itself, and it kind of makes your mind go to other places too and think about what that story actually means. So even with your very first mural, like you were saying, with being in the back of the store, and that provoked people to think, that's an amazing thing and an incredible talent that you have and a gift that you share, which is something that definitely drew me to your artwork. I do have a question. So the RVA that you're wearing, so I know that I've seen the logo in different ways and the colors and stuff. How did that come to be?
Yeah, so first, I'm not going to take credit for the RVA logo. So there's a RVA logo that is, I think kind of became popular about around 5 years ago. And all through RVA, you'll see people customizing them for their business, nonprofit, just everything. And about 3 or 4 years ago, I started creating one just for me, a new design for me every year. The one that I have on right now, and I create a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
every year. And this is the one for 2019. This is the first time I've ever made a shirt for one. But I've done one for 17, 18, 19, and this year, 2020. And
Oh,
I
how
think people are
cool.
just starting to notice because this year did well. 2019 went well, but 2020, I sold more in the first 2 weeks than I sold like all of them put together.
Wow. That's
But
awesome.
yeah.
So if people want to see your artwork and they can't drive around Richmond like I do, I actually, it's like, it's almost like a hide and seek or like
Yeah. That's the
I try and
fun
find it.
thing about it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a lot of fun. We got lost a few times trying to find some of your work, but so I like taking pictures like of your work and then tagging you. And do you have a piece? Is there one that's near the Washington National Stadium? Do you have a piece near there?
Do I have it? Because I don't know, well, I know DC, but because I'm not good with navigating DC too well, I'm not sure. I I have one. Is Rhode Island Avenue off of close to there?
I don't know.
I've
Some
done stuff for the Nationals, but I've never done a piece right like by the National Stadium.
So you know what would be fun is to do like a scavenger hunt of your work through Richmond.
Yeah.
That would be so much fun. All right, I think I need to start that with you because I would do it. I would totally. I'd be that person snapping pictures of everything and tagging it. But so what? Where? I know. I think you did a piece for Facebook too. I saw on
Yeah.
social media. Did you
Mhm.
do something for Facebook as well?
Yeah, I did. I did. So they have a new data center that's out here in Virginia. So last year I did a big piece for them in their like main hallway out there, which was an amazing project. That building is so huge. It's like a city.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So your average mural, I'm just curious, how long does it typically take you to complete and how many people do you usually have on a project?
Yeah. So my average mural usually takes about a week and a half at the longest. And I would say that size is probably around like 80 feet.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and I usually only have one helper with me, if I have a helper at all. But again, like my schedule, especially during mural season, which for me is like from March to December, so it's a pretty long time, is like those days are like 12-hour days, 10 to 12-hour days. It's long. And I don't work on weekends anymore. My kids don't.
Good for you.
But yeah, it's usually not that long because usually I have something coming right back after it.
Right.
So I try to make them um, as fast as possible, but spending a lot of time on them, if that makes any sense.
Sure. No, for sure. Well, and you can see it in your work. I mean, they're they're just beautiful. I know I keep saying that, but I'm definitely in awe of your talent and your ability. And I'm curious, your kids, do you think you're going to put paintbrushes in their hands too?
Oh yeah, my I can't speak for my 3-year-old, but my 9-year-old, she was in here this morning helping me paint. You know, with this COVID-19 thing, um, I'm finishing projects for other things that I had going on here in
Sure.
the studio, and like she needs an outlet, and she loves painting, so like I'm teaching her how to paint now.
That's awesome though. That's what a gift that you can give her too and do that together. That's
Absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah, it's
So
great.
what do you want to paint next? Like if I know you've got your work behind you, but is there something in particular that Ham wants to do? What is it that you want to do next?
That's a good question. I really want to personally, I want to have time to kind of explore. I could On the personal side, I couldn't tell you what I want to paint. I don't think that I've put enough time, or it's a good problem to have, but it is a problem. I don't think I've had enough time to kind of explore my own want to do. So on the personal side, there's that. But on the public art side, I really am trying to get a lot better at the grant writing and doing larger programs, if that makes any sense. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to do it and get grants every year. But I think I would like to make them a little bit larger and kind of get out of just doing like a school here and a school there, and do more things that worked on more complete projects. That it's not just about the art. It's about just like the holistic part of art, if that makes any sense, and involve more than just me in terms of that, bringing in more artists and letting them be a part. Because at the end of the day, I'm just one artist and I'm trying to get a project done, but there are so many more needs in that that I feel like I'm starting to overlook. I'm trying to be careful, but I'm just one person. Right. So bringing in like a team that can kind of like help me have a more holistic approach to these projects, I think is kind of my next step and where I'm trying to go next with it.
Well, maybe you need a grant writer so that can take that off your plate, right? That might be helpful. So that way you can continue to do what you do amazingly so. So, as far as the projects that you have ongoing now, I know you mentioned COVID-19, are you still out and about? Are you still going to be painting the murals, or what's your plan right now?
That's a great question. The awesome part about the great part about where I am, is that I just finished sessions, like the ending part of sessions with Powhatan. My last project was working with the school system over in Powhatan County, both the middle school and the high school. But we had just ended our sessions. Oh wow! So where they designed it and they started to paint it. So the rest was up to me to paint it anyway. Right. So I've got like 2 weeks of that to do right now. So the timing is perfect, even though it might be longer than that. So it's not so perfect, but I have that. And then I have some other commissions that weren't community based that I'm probably going to end up getting into right now. So I'm still designing and painting and doing all of that stuff. Who knows where we're going to land after we get out of this, but I'm still busy right now. Very busy. That's good. I mean, that's a great thing. So I am curious, because you do obviously the murals on the outside, but then you do them in the inside. Do you prefer painting interior or exterior? What do you like if you had to pick one or the other? Honestly, I don't have a preferred. So actually, I would say interior. I like being outside. I really do. What just changed my mind real quick is I started to think about when it's like really hot outside. Yeah. and I'm last year I painted on a roof in the middle of a heat wave. Oh my gosh, you're crazy. I had to work from 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. and that's when it was starting to be unbearable. And then go down, eat lunch, relax. And then that particular wall started getting shade at 3 p.m. So I'll go there from 3 p.m. to sundown to get that. Oh my gosh. And it was still like unbearably high. It was over 105 degrees. Oh. So yeah, I don't go outside when it's that hot. I go from air conditioning to air conditioning. I give you credit for that one. Exactly. It's not easy work. A lot of people, especially artists, will hit me up and say, hey, I really would like to help. And then they get out there with me and they're like, all right, I'm done. This is not what I signed up for. Yeah. If it was inside, it'd be another story. So this is just a random question. Do you have a favorite color, or like a color or a hue? What is it? It's pink. I love pink. I love pink too. I know, because I noticed it on your ceiling, the pink stripes up there. Yeah. Pink is probably in more of my paintings than anything else. It's just like this pop. I don't know. I don't know what it is about it, but I love pink. Pink is like, at one point in time when I was making all of those paintings, when I started, I was like, I'm always going to have pink in my work. I don't know if I've kept true to that, but it is something that I always have here and something I always try to use.
I love that. Is there any other signature thing that you could find as a theme through all of your murals?
I would say lines. My work is about movement. So
Hmm.
like I hate paint, even though these paintings are squares. I hate painting squares
Hmm.
because, and when I do paint them, the challenge is always how do I show movement in a square, if that
Right.
makes any sense. So like you're always, my work is always about movement and flowing in some type of direction,
Hmm.
um, dominant. And so, yeah, that's really my only rule. Even if I tried to paint like that, I don't think I could. If I tried not to, I don't think I could. It's just the way I enjoy painting.
Right. And then do you say that you have like a consistent message through all of your murals? I know some of them are commissioned pieces for specific, organizations, and some are more labors of love, I think, if I could use that
Yeah.
term. So do you feel like there's a consistent message in your murals?
I wouldn't say there's I wouldn't say there's a consistent message, but there's always a message. There's nothing that I do that doesn't have some type of theme or story
Mhm.
behind it. And that's the way I design. Like I design to to have some type of story. Even the large, like you mentioned, Facebook was, they were a really easy client because they were like, just do something cool.
Yeah.
You, that doesn't happen often with clients, but mine's was about like this big power button and turning, you know what I mean, like
I,
activating and turning
I
on.
saw it. I mean, I saw, because you posted pictures of that. It's
Yeah.
really cool.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, and so that's the way I design. That's kind of, I guess that's the architecture in me, where it's got to be some theme that carries throughout the whole thing. And so
Right.
that's just how I do it.
I love it. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us, and I am super excited to to keep following you and seeing the next thing that's coming out. How can people find your artwork, or where's the best place to follow you?
Yeah, so my website is whosham.com. That's WHOSHAM.com. I update it probably about every 2 months, so it lacks some, but my all my social media channels are on my website also. To be honest, Instagram is probably the best one to look at. I always hate telling people that because it's like, oh, go look at my Instagram, but you can get to my Instagram through my website. um, it, it is always the most updated. I use Twitter too, but that's just through Instagram. I post Twitter through Instagram, but my Instagram tells me the up to date. Yep,
There you are. I follow you. And I absolutely, I mean, like I said, I love when I see stuff like this. I mean, this is what draws me to you.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
your message of positivity in a lot of things that you do, and working with kids, and it's an amazing thing. I believe in giving back to our community, and I feel like through your work you do the same thing.
Absolutely. I think everybody has a gift, and that gift is used should be used to uplift their community, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So this is just mine. It's something, and I tell artists all the time, especially aspiring ones who want to be full-time artists, like if you're not helping somebody, you're sitting still.
Right.
And I've felt that through my career as an artist, and it just helps me every day.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of random questions.
Yeah.
So, an aspiring artist, what do you recommend that their first steps be?
Get out of their studio and find out who's in their art community, how you can help them.
Oh, I like that. I
Yeah.
like that a lot. And if they were following a path down, like you did with going to the architecture world, how do you suggest that someone does that mind shift of, because that was a big risk for you as far as,
Yeah.
you kind of fell into it because it was an unemployment situation.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what recommendations do you give someone who is teetering on taking that step of being in the corporate world and maybe taking the leap into becoming the artist that they might be inside?
Yeah, I mean, it's like any other job. Like you have to leverage what is paying you to do what you want to do, but there is going to be a time where you have to make a decision, and that decision will never be easy. Even when you become the full of what you want to be, you're going to run into other goals that are going to give you challenges just like that. I I'm a full-time artist now, but I also like my assistants have to hear me complain about not getting to do personal work as much, and they're like, "You're making money doing what you know what I mean?" And myself 10 years ago would have been like looking at myself sideways too, complaining like that. But I have to invest more time, which means making less money to
Right.
do more, do more work like this so I can get to another level, the level that I want to. So there's always steps that you have to kind of like go through to do it. So it's always is going to be a sacrifice. You're going to have to sacrifice some of that time to put into the work. But the more you sacrifice, the more you're going to get for where you really want to go.
And that's true of so many things, right? I mean, it's anything.
Yeah.
And so do you have your art anywhere that someone, like an exhibit or a store or a shop, that people could come and see pieces like the ones behind you?
Yeah, at the time I do not. I have my work right now is at the Capital One campus in
Cool.
in McLean, Virginia.
Uh-huh.
So you could go there and see it. But other than that, I don't. The problem is I don't make enough personal
Right.
work for
Because it's
people.
out. I mean, that's the beauty of your work, is that they're murals that everyone can see at any time, unless they're
Absolutely.
inside, obviously. But
Absolutely, yeah.
okay, so my last question for you, I always like to end on something a little crazy. So during making putting up a mural, what is some of the craziest things that's ever happened to you?
Oh man. So as a public artist, a lot of crazy things happen to you because people see you working and they can come and stop, you know what I mean? Come and
Yeah.
stop you and talk to you while you're painting. Like, that's why headphones are really important, because half of the people respect them. And
Right.
they go, like, oh, so I'm going to leave him alone. And I like talking to people, but sometimes you're just in the zone. And you want to go. And I've had the craziest thing. I'm pretty sure I've had there are more crazier things than the thing that I'm thinking of. But I've had a lady come up to me and say, "Hey," she said, "Hey, you must be famous because this work is beautiful." And I said, "I'm not famous." And then she started pulling out money to give to me. I was like, I'm getting paid for this. I'm fine. You're okay. She was like, either you're a starving artist or you're famous. And that just tickled me. I was like, that was a crazy thing that's happened to me. I can't think of anything really crazy right now, but I've heard the weirdest things just because people come up to you and they start telling you their whole life story.
Sure.
And, you know what I mean? It's just one of those things. Sometimes it's good though. It's like therapy. Like, you get to talk to people. You're having a bad day. Somebody comes up to you and they're talking to you, and you get to kind of vibe with that person and things like that. And other days you're just like, leave me alone.
I need to work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It is funny though, the headphones, the AirPods and stuff, they definitely can help, but sometimes people just don't even know. Like, they're like, yeah, I'm still gonna talk to you.
I can be like up on a 20-foot lift with headphones on. People will still like go under me and like throw stuff at me to get my attention. Like,
oh my
hey,
gosh,
what are you doing? Like, I'm working.
What does it look like I'm doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. This has been awesome. And I'm so glad that I got to learn more about who Ham Glass is, Mr. Hamilton Glass in Richmond, Virginia. And your work is phenomenal. I'm super excited that hopefully in this conversation, more people will now be able to go on a scavenger hunt of your work. And most of it is in Richmond. Like you said about 200 murals in Richmond right now.
Yeah, it's well. The only reason I always throw out that figure is because my assistant and I started cataloging because I was going to do like a book of them. We're not working on that anymore. I mean, we'll pick it up soon again, but we stopped at like 205.
Wow.
But there's a lot more. I'm pretty much in every school in Richmond. So the stuff that you see, you don't see anything in the schools because you're not in the school. So like
Right.
the stuff that you see isn't really a reflection of how much work I actually have in Richmond. But I don't know the exact number, but it's a lot. We stopped at 205 and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've done this much.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
Mhm.
Well, I think you need to start cataloging it and definitely keeping your Instagram up, because I'm sure you have so many followers that just definitely appreciate, as do I, your work. And I'm going to make sure that people will put the links to all of your social media on this as well, so that people can, after hearing you, if they're not following you already, they should, because your message is amazing and your work is absolutely beautiful. So thank you so much, Hamilton, or Ham, for joining me today. And I really appreciate everything that you do and giving back to the community. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your interest in me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.